Hey everybody, Dwayne Lay again at the Lean HR blog, and today we're going to talk about spaghetti diagrams, specifically as they're used in human resources. If you remember, we talked a little bit yesterday about how to build a spaghetti diagram, mostly used in the manufacturing world. They kind of get overlooked in HR because we don't have forklifts, right? We don't have heavy materials to move around, so we don't really need to map the movement of materials in transportation, right? You know it's not true, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it. So let's just think about a standard office environment. I've got a corner office here for my manager, because they're very, very important people. They have an administrator. We have a talent acquisition person. We'll call this our admin. We'll call this our boss. We have HR. And then we might have a couple of what we'll call our subject matter experts, people who are going to engage in this process. Specifically, we're going to talk talent acquisition. So these are going to be important people in our lives in a few minutes. So the boss decides they need to hire somebody. Well, I've got some paperwork to fill out. So they call HR. HR says, here's your forms, fill these out. Okay, great. They go back to the boss. The boss says, well, I'm not going to fill these out myself. So I give it to the administrator to fill out. That person fills out the paperwork, sends it back to the boss to be approved. Yep, this all looks good. Sends it back to HR. HR then sends it to the talent acquisition person, to their staffing partner, and says, I need you to help me find this person. Talent acquisition is going to go external to source candidates. Maybe they're looking at internal candidates, maybe they're going to job boards. However it is we're finding the candidates for these jobs, they come back to talent acquisition. Talent acquisition could present them to the boss or to HR or both. We look through the boss, may ask the administrator to look through those again. Eventually we figure out who they're going to come to. We get our candidate slates. Well, when we're ready to get all that done, we go back to HR. We say, here's the candidate we want to talk to. Let's set up interviews. HR sends resumes around to the subject matter expert. They might have the staffing person look at it again. We might go back to the administrator for some other input. Eventually it comes back to HR. HR schedules the interviews. We have the person who walks in. They come in the front door. They get passed from the administrator to the HR person, the front administrator. They might go to this administrator before they talk to the boss. They might then talk to the staffing person, both subject matter experts, back to HR for a final wrap-up before they're out the door. Good. So a spaghetti diagram can really tell us what's happening in HR too. Don't overlook this tool. It's terribly simple to use. So how do we rebuild this? Well, we look at the same ideas. We don't want a lot of crosses. We don't want a movement. We want to have things flow as simply and easily as possible. So let's try this again. In an ideal world, we may have an office where the boss has a corner office, and they have a big desk where they are the boss, and they have an administrator, and they have a talent acquisition partner, and they have an HR partner, and they have two subject matter experts who are going to help them in their search. Rather than pass forms around back and forth, we can very easily put a lot of power in the hands of talent acquisition. Hopefully they know, based on staffing plans and movement within the business, what they're going to have to source anyway, right? But let's just draw a clear line of communication between these two people. The boss works directly with talent acquisition and says, this is what I need. These are the job skills. This is what I'm looking for in a person. Help me out. Talent acquisition, again, they go to that external box, whatever it may be, internal, external job boards, what have you. We bring people back in. Now, the talent acquisition in this case may say, I'll set up the interviews, I'll set up the information that has to be passed on. We're going to go subject matter expert, back to the boss. The boss may make a decision here, then we go back to the talent acquisition person. Maybe there's some communication between talent acquisition and HR. Communication gets taken care of. We make an offer, we don't make an offer, we move on. From an external person's point of view, they come in for an interview. You go to talent acquisition, subject matter expert, to the boss, talent acquisition, out the door. Or they come in, maybe they go to HR, and they go to the boss. The idea is you want to have as few backtracks as possible. You want to have clear lines of communication, make it very, very smooth. The point of this is not saying, hey, this is a much better way to do your talent acquisition. The point of it is to say, this chart is cleaner than the last one we looked at. So maybe that's better. Maybe there's other ways to set this up. Maybe there's other ways to combine roles. Maybe you don't need your subject matter experts if you really know what the skill sets look like. The spaghetti diagram is intended just to give you a visual look at how you're moving information around and how you can better improve that flow. one of the most powerful things I've ever seen done with a spaghetti diagram wasn't actually done on paper. We were looking at a very specific document for expenses. And the question became, how much time do we spend processing expenses? Well, it's fairly simple. You fill your information out, you send it over to accounting, and they take care of it, right? What was actually happening is it would go to someone in accounting, who would then pass it over to someone in finance, who might pass it over to someone looking at travel policies. You're going to have to go through 3 or 4 approvals. But what was done with it, and what was really powerful, is they actually took all the people who were involved in this and lined them up in the hallway. And then took an expense report and said, here, and handed it to the first person. And that person had to sit and hand it to the next person all the way down the chain. And it was very interesting to see a physical representation of all of the handoffs that would go on. You had people who would have to come back, if they got to the end, and they would take it back to the 3rd person in line, and then they had to know to take it to the 5th person in line. There's a lot of confusion just in the hallway. And it really made people realize how much back and forth we had in these processes, and to sit down and say, who really needs to look at these? How much time are we spending, how much money are we spending on the administration of an expense report that, gosh, if we lifted the floor for receipts to $25 instead of $15, we could eliminate half of those, and it would save us money in the long run. Gosh, even if we gave everybody an extra $10 on their expense reports for no good reason, without looking at all those receipts, it would save us thousands of dollars a month. So it was a physical representation of a spaghetti diagram. A little bit different way to do it, but also pretty powerful. So don't overlook the value of a simple tool like a spaghetti diagram to show you exactly how information is being moved around and how much administrative overhead you built into your process. It may not be a forklift, but it's expensive nonetheless.